This happened when my brother Aiden and I were about 11 and 12 years old. We grew up in a rural town in Ireland, the kind of place with a bustling centre, and then farms stretching out for miles. Our home was the second-to-last house on the very edge of the town. To our right was our neighbour, and then a massive ancient hedgerow that separated our neighbourhood from farmland. The first few fields were all barley and wheat, and as kids that was our kingdom. We'd carved secret tunnels through those thick hedges, passages that only we and our friends knew. All summer long we'd run through those fields, playing war games, building forts, and getting lost in the tall crops. Each field was huge, separated by more hedgerows, some with streams running through them. It was our own private adventure land. Looking back, I realized just how isolated we were. Our house was the last stop before an endless sea of barley and wheat. Beyond us there was nothing but fields and darkness. One night in late summer, it was around 9:30, and already getting dark. Aiden, our two best mates Patrick and Declan, and I were playing football out in the street. We did this almost every night. Our parents were pretty relaxed about it. We were right in front of the house, and in a small town like ours, it felt completely safe. We were just messing around, laughing and shouting, when suddenly we heard it, an ear-piercing screech. It came from the barley field right next to us, just on the other side of the hedgerow. The sound was so loud, so high-pitched and sharp, it cut right through the night and stopped us in our tracks. At first we just laughed. To us it sounded like a pig squealing or some other animal that had gotten hurt. It sounded panicked, but we were kids, so we found it more funny than frightening. Patrick grinned and said, "What the hell was that?" Declan chimed in, "Sounds like a pig got stuck." And I, feeling the rush of a new adventure, said, "Let's go check it out. I wish we had stayed on that street. I wish we'd gone inside and told our parents." But kids are drawn to mystery, so we squeezed through our secret tunnel in the hedge and started running towards the sound. We were still laughing, racing each other through the barley, which was tall and ready for harvest. It came up past our waists, so we couldn't see the ground, couldn't see what might be trapped or injured. We just ran, following the echo of that awful screech. As we got closer to where we thought it was, the sound just stopped. We all skidded to a halt, looking at each other, still half laughing. "Where'd it go?" Aiden asked. Then it started again, but this time it was coming from a completely different direction, back where we'd first entered the field. We exchanged confused glances. How could it have moved that fast? "Must be running from us," I said, but a little knot of unease was already forming in my stomach. So we sprinted back, convinced we were going to be heroes and save some poor animal. Then the sound stopped again, and immediately started up right behind us. This time it felt different. The sound was the same high-pitched screech, but it felt wrong. Ominous. We all stopped running and stood there in the dark field, surrounded by barley, the fear starting to creep in. "What's going on?" Patrick whispered. Before anyone could answer, the sound stopped, then started again, way off in the distance, maybe 100 yards away, at the far end of the field, and then it moved. I have never heard anything move so fast. The screech came hurtling toward us through the darkness, covering that massive distance in just a few seconds. No animal could move that fast. Just as it sounded like it was right on top of us, it stopped again, and instantly started from the complete opposite end of the field, racing toward us once more. Now we were genuinely scared. This wasn't an injured animal. This wasn't natural. "We need to go," I said, my voice shaking. "We need to go now." But before we could even move, the sound started coming from everywhere at once. It would screech from one direction, stop, and immediately start from another, moving in impossible patterns all around us. It was toying with us, darting around that field like a phantom. We were surrounded by this terrifying wail in the pitch-black darkness, lost in barley too tall to see through, way too far from the lights of home. Without a word, we all just turned and ran. We sprinted as fast as our legs could carry us, back toward the hedgerow, back toward the safety of the streetlights. The screeching followed us, chasing us through that field. It was everywhere, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind. Sometimes it even sounded like it was right above our heads. It was relentless, like it was trying to drive us mad with fear. My little brother Aiden was crying, just sobbing in terror as he ran. Patrick and Declan were screaming. I was just praying we'd make it out. We burst through our tunnel in the hedge, scratching ourselves on the branches, not even caring, just desperate to get back to the street. We stumbled out onto the pavement, under the orange glow of the streetlights, gasping for breath. The second we left the field and our feet hit the concrete, the screeching stopped. Complete silence. We all just stood there, shaking, looking back at the dark hedgerow. Nothing. No sound. No movement. Just the gentle rustle of barley in the night air. What was that? Declan finally managed to say. None of us had an answer. We were all shaken, but Aiden took it the hardest. He was hysterical. He cried for weeks after that and refused to go anywhere near the field, even in broad daylight. He started having nightmares, waking up screaming about the woman in the field. I'd ask him, "What woman?" And he'd just say, "The one who was chasing us. The screaming woman." But none of us had seen a woman. We hadn't seen anything at all. Just heard that awful, impossible sound. Our parents thought we'd just let our imaginations run wild in the dark. They didn't believe us when we tried to explain how the sound had moved, how fast it was, how it felt like we were being hunted. Life went on. We were more careful after that, sticking to the streetlights. But the memory of that night never left us. A few years later, everything changed. Aiden died suddenly in our house. He was only 15. It was his heart. a condition he'd had since birth that no one knew about. He just went to sleep one night and never woke up. My family was destroyed. I was destroyed. Losing my little brother, the kid I was supposed to protect. It broke something inside me that never really healed. After Aiden died, I started asking around town about those fields, about whether anyone else had ever experienced anything strange out there. That's when I started hearing the stories. People I'd known my whole life, people with no reason to lie, told me they'd seen a withered old woman in those fields over the years. Always at dusk or at night, always near the hedgerows. Some said she looked ancient, with long gray hair and tattered clothes. Others had only seen her silhouette, but they all agreed on one thing: she screamed. One old farmer told me he'd seen her 3 times in his life, and each time someone in the area died soon after. "That's the Banshee," he said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "She comes to warn us. She keens for the dead." I didn't want to believe it. Every Irish kid grows up with stories of the Banshee, but I always thought they were just fairy tales. But the more I thought about that night, the more it all started to make a terrible kind of sense. The impossible speed of the sound. The way it stopped right at the edge of the field, as if it couldn't cross into our neighborhood. The paralyzing dread it filled us with, and the fact that Aiden had been the most affected. He'd seen something we hadn't. He kept talking about the woman in the field. What if she had been there that night for him? What if she was warning us, warning him, that his time was coming? I've done a lot of research on banshees since then. In Irish folklore, they are harbingers of death. They appear as women, often old and withered, and their wail, their keen, is a sign that someone is about to die. They're often connected to certain old Irish families, and they're heard near water or on the boundaries between wild and cultivated land. Our field fit the description perfectly. The streams and the hedgerows, the boundary between town and farmland. And my family, the O'Rourkes, were one of those old Irish families that banshees are said to follow. I can't prove what chased us through that barley field. I can't prove it was a banshee. But I know something supernatural was with us that night. Something that moved too fast, that defied logic, that was bound by some ancient rule. And 3 years later, my brother died. I'm 32 now. I don't live in that town anymore. But sometimes when I'm lying in bed at night, I think about that night in the barley field. I think about the screeching that chased us home. And I wonder if we had understood what we were hearing, could we have saved him? Could doctors have found his heart condition in time? Or was the Banshee just doing her job, mourning a death that was already written in the stars? I'll never know. But I'll tell you this. If you ever in rural Ireland and you hear a high-pitched, inhuman screech coming from a dark field, don't investigate. Don't be curious. Don't be brave. Just run. Run as fast as you can towards the lights. And pray to God that when you get there, the keening stops. Because if it doesn't, if it follows you home, it might mean the Banshee's warning is for you. Thanks for listening. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more true horror stories. Stay safe out there.